Welcome to Brewin Up Business. I am your host, Tiffanie Kellogg, and I'm excited to be here today as we start a new segment within our podcast where occasionally I will be interviewing some people from around the globe that have created success in their world, in their business, and I'm going to ask them the burning question of, okay, how do you recommend we brew up business? Also, on some of these interviews, not all of them, we will be recording them both audio and video. So if you're listening to this as the podcast, we will be posting videos to correspond with some of our podcasts on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. So you can check those out. Again, Brewin Up Business with no G because I'm Southern. And while you're checking things out online, remember to find us on Instagram and Facebook as well. So today we are going to be interviewing somebody that I've known for almost a decade now and has created some amazing success here in the Tampa Bay area and now in the United States and coming soon the world. So let's quick over to our interview. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So our first question we have is, what is one of your best tips on brewing up business?
So my best tip for brewing up business is to start ugly. It's two words I live by. Most people are perfectionistic or just don't get things off the ground. So my advice always is start ugly and figure it out as you go along.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, or maybe how you've done that in your business? And what is it, by the way, that you do?
So, well, I do a lot of different things, but I build communities and I facilitate them. So the current community I'm facilitating is called Podfest Multimedia Expo. I founded a community of podcasters about 5 years ago, and now it's become one of the largest in the world. So that's I put on an event called podfestexpo.com, and that's where we have 60 different sessions. People all over the world come together. So my key talent is bringing people together around really exceptional content and community. So with starting ugly, it's a very simple thing, but for instance, I was going to write a book and I didn't know how to write the book. So instead of going too crazy, I just started writing a free form of my thoughts. And then I literally, as I was writing it, asked some help from a friend. And instead of allowing myself to say I can't write a book or I don't know how to write a book, I just wrote. And I'm not the best writer. I don't, my punctuation, all that stuff is terrible, but here I am. I started ugly, and then all the pieces came together of what I needed. I have a friend who's helping us co-write the book, and now from just starting, I'm actually going to write 2 books, and they'll be released sometime next year. One of them is actually called Start Ugly.
Oh, yeah. So we go from nothing at all to 2 books.
Yeah, if you allow yourself to be paralyzed by your perfectionism or fear, which both are the same thing, you'll never get anything off the ground. And what I found is something about the message of starting ugly resonates with business people because it's, I guess it's very reptilian because it's ugly, so you don't have to worry about it being perfect. Now that being said, if you're worried about it being not perfect enough, you obviously are starting much better than someone that doesn't care. So that's a good sign.
Gotcha. What do you find is usually the hardest first step for people to get started?
Literally taking the first step. They tend to think about what they're going to do, and I'd rather them do something rather than thinking about something. So right now I've been thinking about working out for the better part of this year. I'm actually going to walk in and do it rather than thinking about it. So part of it is we think too much rather than just do.
So when are you going to start working out?
Actually, I went into the YMCA locally this past Sunday. I'll be heading back there tomorrow. So yeah, I'm in the flow now.
You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah. Instead of thinking about it, I'm just doing it. Yeah.
And what about people that are struggling to even take that first step? Or maybe they know they want to write a book, but they don't even know what could be that first step? What if somebody has a big goal, but they're not sure how to start with step 1?
Yeah. So here's the challenge. We help people with podcasting. What we found after helping thousands of people, the ones that start podcasting and they bought the wrong mic, they had the wrong equipment, they did everything wrong, are better off than the ones that waited to get everything perfect a year later. Because what happens is, yes, you did everything wrong, but in the meantime, people gave them the advice to switch up and do everything right. So I know this sounds crazy, but there was a scientific study done on getting people to run 3 miles. I think it was 3 times a week. And they had 2 focus groups. The one focus group, they just said, okay, what we need you to do right now is start running and come back when you're done. And they were like, now? They're like, yeah, right now. Start running. Run as much as you can. Get back done. The goal is to do 3 miles 3 times a week. The other focus group was 100 people, and they said, okay, do you guys like watching TV? And they thought it was a trick question. Everybody's like, yeah. They're like, okay, does anyone here watch like Modern Family? And someone's like, yeah, I watch that. They're like, during the commercial breaks, can you walk around your living room and then sit down after? They're like, sure. Then they're like, that's the assignment for the week. So the next week, everybody shows up, and they go, 97% of the people show up. 3 actually quit from just doing that. They couldn't do that. But 97% of people show up, and then they said, okay, now when the commercials go on, can you walk around your house and just time it 3 minutes and come back in? They're like, yeah, we could do that. So each they mile marker it, and before you knew it, 60% of them were jogging outside the house. So it's the small steps that actually spurn you into action, not the big steps. That's why writing a book to me was so overwhelming. But if I had my notes app on my phone and I'm on a plane just writing my stream of consciousness around what I wanted to write, then all of a sudden the book came out because I wasn't thinking about a book. I was just thinking about the ideas I wanted to write down. Gotcha.
So you said one of the book is going to be Start Ugly?
Yes.
What's the other book going to be about?
It's called Future Proofing Your Business, and it's the intersection of artificial intelligence and voice activation and bots and digital assistants in the new landscape.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's written with the co-author, Steve Tingeris, who's bought and sold 4 different tech companies. He's one of the top Alexa skill developers in the world right now. So he and I are writing a book about what's happening now is we're all going to have digital assistants, and they're going to have human voices. It's already been tested. It just hasn't rolled out to everybody yet. So we're going to have that. So what's going to happen, Tiffany, is you will have a bot. You could decide if you want it to sound just like you, or it could sound like someone else. But if I want to get to you, your bot will be intelligent, and it will learn from anything you've ever taught, and it will know how to form opinions based on your thought patterns. So I could literally hire your bot as a consultant. And then if I wanted to get to you, obviously there'd be a premium. Or if I had a question, your bot could just be the first level of sales where I could have a conversation with your bot. And then if I needed to get to you, there was a premium. That's all out. It's out now, but it's being tested, but it'll be rolled out in the next couple of years.
It's amazing how much things have changed over the past couple decades.
It's going to exponentially expand. And I'm always excited with tech, so I'm always on the cutting edge, or at least I think I am.
Cool. So I wanted to bring us back to this Podfest, because you mentioned Podfest. So can you tell the listeners what Podfest, I know you told us a teeny bit. Can you tell us what it's about, when it's coming up? Because I know it's a couple months from now.
So Podfest used to be housed in Tampa Bay. Now it's housed in Orlando, Florida, March 7th, 8th, and 9th. Next year will be our 5-year anniversary. We're going to have somewhere around 1,000 content creators from all over the world. Some of the largest companies in the audio space will be there. So it's not unusual to see like AWeber, the email marketing company there, all the audio hosting companies, the hardware companies, people like Spotify, iHeartRadio. So they're all in the podcasting space. So all the heads of those companies are on there. So there's a trade show element to it. But let's say you know nothing about podcasting. We have a startup workshop that gets you started. And then we have 60 different tracks that you could literally pick and choose to learn about things like audio drama, business podcasts, how to monetize with Audible, books, all kinds of monetization, LinkedIn. A lot of it's podcasting based, but then there's a lot of YouTube. We have a full day YouTube conference called VidFest on March the 7th, and that'll have about 300 attendees alone. We'll have some of the top YouTubers in the world teaching how to exponentially expand your reach via YouTube. So there's something for everyone. I highly recommend if you're a local business owner, it's a huge advantage, especially if you're in the Southeast, to come to this in Orlando. Most of these big conferences that we put on are, not that I put on, but people put on in this area, tend to be out of the West Coast of the U.S. They're all almost exclusively in Anaheim, San Diego. So we're very fortunate to have one in Orlando, Florida.
Very fine. So I know you mentioned if you're thinking about starting a podcast or if you've got a podcast, but is there a reason if, let's say, I don't have a podcast, would there be a purpose for me to go and attend anyway?
Absolutely. One of the top ways, and this is how I'm going to launch my books, by the way, is you want to be a guest expert on podcasts. So you could, if you're an expert in your field, imagine if you found the podcaster that specializes in your niche. And literally, we have niches that you would, unless you came to Podfest, you would think I'm lying to you. But we have a guy that controls anything that goes on in the horse world. So if you had a product for horses, or we have veterinarians, we have healers, but some of the largest authorities in the world, if they featured you on their podcast, it could literally be game-changing for your consulting, your business, your practice in so many different ways.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, anything else you want to add on Podfest or Starting Ugly?
Yeah, Starting Ugly is a philosophy. It's a way of life. And I think if you want to make something happen in this, the new year, any new year for that matter, start ugly. Don't think about it. Thinking about it is actually the antithesis of starting ugly.
Gotcha, cool. Well, last question I have for you, what we always like to ask the people on. We're curious to know what's your favorite brew right now. I've got some kombucha going on. So what would you say is your favorite brew?
Well, I drink a lot of green tea, so that's probably what I drink the most. But root beer is my drink of choice when I'm out and about for sodas. I'll have root beer.
Is that brewed?
Is root beer brewed? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's.
But all right, cool.
Green tea is green. Yeah, green tea would be brewed.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, Chris, for having us on. Oh, and where can people find out more about you and about Podfest?
So you can go on my website, chriskrimitsos.com, and if you can't spell my last name, Google will redirect you. And podfestexpo.com is for the podcasting conference.
Perfect. Well, thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thanks, Tiffany.
It was great to have Chris with us. And if you're thinking Podfest sounds familiar, if you remember back to season 1, we actually had Rob did a podcast live from Podfest and interviewed a ton of different and interesting people. So if you missed that, you can go check out season 1. And maybe you can go to Podfest next year and maybe see Rob there and be interviewed by him for this podcast. Also, we do want to thank Sense of Tampa for being one of our continuing sponsors. We appreciate your support. And as always, we want to wish you cheers.